Today on Escape the Clock, we're aiming to answer the question, if you are working full-time, why does the money always seem to run out before the month does? According to Payments Intelligence, 62% of U.S. adults say they are living paycheck to paycheck, and nearly half are earning more than $100,000 a year. 44% say that they have nothing left at the end of the month. No matter how many promotions and raises are earned, for most Americans, the money just simply disappears before the month does. So why does more pay do so little for so many? The answer has nothing to do with how hard you work, and has everything to do with whether you have a system. Today's guest learned that watching it happen on every continent. Michael Dillard spent his career as a U.S. diplomat, moving his family across the world every few years and watching colleagues at every income level struggle after decades of work with nothing to show for it. So he built the S.A.V.E.R system, a 5-step order of operations for every dollar that you earn. So today, we get into the exact sequence that your money should follow. Stay tuned to learn the framework that none of us were handed, but all of us could have used when we cashed that very first paycheck. Welcome back to Escape the Clock, the show where we highlight strategies and approaches for achieving financial freedom and having the option not to work. I'm your host, Daniel C. Rogers. There's a quiet assumption baked into how most of us were raised to think about money. The assumption is that if you just earn enough, the rest takes care of itself. Make more, and the stress goes away. Get the raise, the promotion, the better title, and one day you'll look up, find yourself financially secure. That's not how it actually works. The data is brutal about it. According to the PNC Bank 2025 Financial Wellness in the Workplace report, 67% of full-time U.S. workers say they are living paycheck to paycheck, and that's up 63% in 2024. This is not a fringe story. This is a majority of working Americans grinding every week and then watching it vanish. Here's the part that should just stop us cold. This is not only a low-income story. The cycle reaches well into the 6-figure households, because earning more money without a system just means losing more money faster. Meanwhile, the cost of standing still keeps climbing. Americans collectively carry $1.2 trillion in credit card debt as of late 2025. The average cardholder balance is now $6,523 at an average interest rate of 22.3%. That balance is not sitting still. It's quietly compounding against you every single day. So the paycheck disappears. Debt grows. Cycle tightens. And what most people lack is not income, it's a system, a clear, repeatable framework for managing how their money flows and grows so that it's always working on their behalf. Today's guest built exactly that. Michael Dillard is a retired U.S. diplomat, personal finance educator, and the author of Build Generational Wealth, Retire Early. After managing multi-million-dollar government operations and leading teams around the globe, Michael created the S.A.V.E.R philosophy, a 5-step system helping busy professionals and couples stop living paycheck to paycheck, start building long-term generational wealth. Michael, welcome to Escape the Clock.
Hey, Daniel, thank you for having me on Escape the Clock. Hearing your story, listening to some of the episodes, I was excited to get on, and I'm so excited to share with your listeners today.
Awesome. Yeah, you're a bit like myself here because I know your path into personal finance education is not the usual one because you were not a financial planner or a Wall Street analyst. You were a U.S. diplomat and you were managing these complex operations across the globe. That's fascinating. I'd love to hear more if you could think back a little bit to maybe some of the moments you were realizing that the people around you, regardless of their income or title or whatnot, were not financially free and kind of inspired you into what you're doing.
Yes, what I realize is that no matter if you're making 6 figures or if you're making $30,000 a year, that a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck. Most people think if I can just make an additional $5,000 per month, Daniel, I'll be good to go. I'm making 6-figure, life is good. But what I saw was that people were still in debt. Why? Lifestyle creep. 2, they're going on vacations. 3, they don't know what to do with their money. As a result, their money was managing them. People would come to me every once in a while, ask me financial advice. I would give it to them. And then 5 years later, I would see them. They're like, Michael, thank you so much for the information. Thank you so much for helping me.
Yeah, there's a lot of stats on this actually. And it always makes me think about the lack of financial education in the country because US adults, when tested on financial literacy, usually only score about 49% right on the basic stuff. And that figure has never exceeded 52% in the 9 years they've been measuring it. And it's been shown that adults with low financial literacy are 3 times more likely to be what they call financially fragile. And so being able to even know what to do with that paycheck becomes really difficult. I know you managed complex multimillion-dollar operations as a diplomat. And so you have to have been looking at so many different systems and things. What did some of these environments teach you that led you up to being able to start to help people?
What I realize is that, being a U.S. diplomat, first and foremost, we're almost like the military where we have to move every 3 to 4 years with our family, which can be costly. So just keep that in mind. Imagine you move to Dominican Republic, you put the pictures on the wall, all of a sudden the picture frame falls down, it breaks. You go and you buy another picture frame, right? And then you want to match the house. Then there's different climates. So you buy new clothes for different climates. The point being is just picture the fact that every time you're moving, there's new things that you need to buy, new presents you have to buy. Like you're out of the country, you don't have access to your Doritos and your typical snacks that you like. So you're buying all these birthday gifts. You're trying to plan ahead. So you got all these different things you're buying. As a result, you start spending money left and right. All of a sudden, you look up after working in X country, going on vacations in the country, trying to enjoy everything. You realize you have nothing. Picture that, Daniel. Every few years you're traveling, you have nothing. Why? Because you don't realize that at some point in time, you have to plan for your future. Nobody talks about that. Everybody talks about, hey, what did you do for the weekend? They didn't say, did you set money aside? They didn't say, hey, do you have life insurance covered if something happens to you? They don't talk about any of the financial stuff, which is why, as your stats show, most people are financially fragile.
Yeah, 62% of Americans, including people with six-figure salaries, have $0 left at the end of the month. So why is that? Like, let's just start with the basics here. Is there a math problem, behavior problem? What's really causing this for so many people?
From talking to so many married couples and individuals, what I realize is that people don't have a system. They have one person that'll tell them, don't invest their money in the stock market because it's risky. But then you realize that there's other people who make a lot of money and they have a lot of money. If it's so risky, why are they investing in the stock market? And why are they able to go on vacations and trips with their families? Why? Because they know something that poor people don't know per se, right? They know something that people who are living paycheck to paycheck every single month. No, there's people that you've seen like yourself who are able to retire early. In order to retire early, they had to have a plan. And what happens most of the time is that things are not connected. People don't talk about life insurance. They don't talk about investing in their 401k. They'll say, oh, yep, my employer's taking care of it. I ask them, oh, so your employer really wants you to retire early? So they pick the best fund for you so that you personally can retire early. Okay, yeah. Then the other thing is taxes. They're putting money into their Robinhood account. They're buying stocks. They're buying these different meme stocks. They're buying AI stocks, which is great, but they're being taxed on that money every single year as if it's income because they don't know about IRAs. So there's lack of having a system, which is my S.A.V.E.R system. S, secure your income. A, make sure you align and allocate your free money match from your employer. Then make sure you align it to the right investments within your account. Most of the time, your employer, they're going to put you in a target date fund. And if you look at the average return, it's going to have about 6% versus an index fund, large cap, will have about a 9% rate of return. And when you go and look at the numbers, you'll see that that is literally $100,000 financial difference over 25, 30 years. And then you talked about debt. People need to vanquish high interest debt, pay off the credit cards, empower your tax savings. Make sure you get that discount. If you were in the mall shopping, you go up to the cash register, they offer you a 20% coupon, you would take it. That's what the government is doing. They're offering you a tax discount on your investments. And then R, from the S.A.V.E.R framework, reiterate financial literacy by teaching your children about money, opening up a child savings account, a 529 plan, just teaching them early and often. Show them that you bought stocks for them. And every year, show them how that money grows.
Yeah, your S.A.V.E.R philosophy is actually really great. distills the different pieces because it can be very complex for people. So I want to go through this in more detail. But before we do that, you made a great point about people do kind of go in this autopilot because their employer plans are doing this or that, and you're opted in. And no one's more biased for your financial outcomes and your financial wealth than you are. Nobody.
Exactly.
So, you have to take that bias. So before we get into the different pieces of S.A.V.E.R, can you talk a little bit about what the biggest misconceptions people are caring about, why that they're living paycheck to paycheck and why they're broke, and what emotional cost and toil that has on everyone?
Yes, it comes down to your mindset, emotional mindset. What that means is that if people would literally take out a piece of paper and write down how much money they make and how many hours they work for that month, deduct all your bills, and then take a look at how much money you have left over at the end of the month that you actually have in your savings account or that you put in your retirement account. Take that number, and what you're going to realize is that out of the 160 hours that you work per month, you're probably only literally working 10 hours for yourself. The other 150 hours, you're working for Visa, you're working for your car, you're working for all these different credit unions, you're working for the gas in the car, you're working for the clothes you bought, the vacations. That's who you're working for. And the reason is your mindset. You have to make sure that before you get paid, you know where your money's going to go. You already know as soon as you go to work that when you get your paycheck, 5% going towards your 401k, you get the employer match, then you're going to pay off your credit cards if you have credit cards, anything left over, then you're going to go ahead and start putting money into your IRA, and you're going to know your retirement number. That's where I'm going. A lot of people, they don't know their retirement number. They say they want to retire at age 62. How much money do you need to retire at age 62? Most people don't know. And so they're literally driving to retirement with a blindfold on, with their eyes closed, because they're just guessing that, oh, when I retire at age 62, I'm going to have $2 million in assets to pull from. And as you know, wealth starts from day one, because it compounds over time. So most people, they don't have a system and they don't have an actual retirement number. Spouses always get in trouble when I say, do this homework. Ask your spouse, when do they want to retire? Okay, now, do y'all actually have enough money to afford to retire at that age?
Yeah, even people in the FI community don't even know sometimes. They have no idea what age they're going to be, when they'll be done, or how much they'll actually have. And so they usually appreciate my help in actually vetting the plan and running the math, because the cost of this is very real. Because when you're living paycheck to paycheck, you just end up with no capital to do anything with. 42% of Americans have less than $1,000 in savings as of 2025. And 49%, that's almost half of everybody, would be unable to cover an emergency expense without selling something significant or a painful withdrawal from an account they don't want to withdraw from. So I want to get into the S.A.V.E.R framework. The first one is securing your income. And I think someone might hear income security and immediately think of like their job. So like, how do you reframe what this actually means? And what does a truly secure financial foundation look like before someone is ready to grow their wealth?
Secure your income is simple. Say you're married, you got 2 children, 10-year-old twins. You're working, you're making $80,000 a year. Your spouse is working, making $80,000 a year. You and your neighbor actually work at the same place. So you drive to work, y'all share cars, y'all do the whole carpool, you go to work, making $80,000 a year. Your neighbor, John, has a conversation with you and say, hey, you know what? You should get life insurance outside of work because they're only going to give us one time our salary. You say, no, I'm good. All of a sudden, there's a tragic car accident and you both are in it. Y'all both don't survive. Your spouse ends up with $80,000 check to take care of those twins from age 10 until age what? 25, 30 until they're off your payroll. But your neighbor bought that policy outside of work for $500,000, only costing him about $30 per month. Now his family and his children are going to be more financially secure. And this is what it means to be secure your income, because if something happened to you or your spouse and you don't have life insurance outside of work, keep in mind I said outside of work, because most people say they got life insurance. And I say, okay, if your employer tapped you on your shoulder right now and they literally fired you, told you go home right now, go ahead and call HR and ask them, how much is that group life insurance policy going to cost now that you don't work for them anymore? You will be very surprised. It's going to cost you probably like 5 times that amount. In addition, if you're paying additional, say you're making $80,000 and they say, hey, you pay an additional $40 per month for additional $80,000 $50,000, first it sounds good. But if you compare it to what you can buy on the market, you're going to realize you could have had a $500,000 policy for that same amount. And it goes with you no matter if you work at your current employer, you quit, you got a side job, you own it, and your family, your children will be happy that you didn't leave them written in debt with a GoFundMe account.
In wealth management, we typically talk about your liability, especially if you have a job that depends on your human capital, such as like if you got injured, you'd be unable to do your job anymore. Think of a surgeon would injure their hands, no longer be able to do their work. Now they've lost their only main income stream. It can be very treacherous not to have something to protect you in that case. And I know that's what you're getting at with a lot of these contingencies. I do think, though, there are probably two groups of people who might be listening. One thinking, okay, I have a good income today. I depend on it. I just need to figure out what to do with that because I only have one income stream. But then there's probably the person who's just in survival mode and they probably like, well, I have nothing I can even work with here. I have $0. I don't even know how I could afford $30 a month on insurance. Two very different types of people in different phases. But like, how do you meet people where they are when it comes to really securing their income?
Yeah, I tell them, hey, you know what? Stop going out to eat. Tell them, hey, go cancel that subscription. You don't need that Spotify. Look at your family right now and say, look, I can't afford $30 per month to protect you so that you don't go into debt, so that you don't go into bankrupt because I'm not willing to spend $30 on you. When people start and sit back and have that real conversation, they realize, no, it's an emotional mindset. They're lying to themselves. They're giving themselves excuses. And if they don't have that money, tell them, hey, go work a part-time job so that you can secure your income. Because if you're making, say, $20 an hour and you're broke, and you take a part-time job, that first $30 is extra money. Go buy the life insurance policy outside of your employer.
And it's not forever, right? Like it's about getting out of that survival mode so that you can start to be able to have some, discretionary money where you can start to spend it on those niceties that you like to have. And I think for that surgeon, it's more of you can't put all your eggs in one basket. You have to be able to create a second income stream, and there's lots and lots and lots of ways to do that. I'd like to ask you though about debt, because I think debt is the sludge that really is hurting people. It's like the hole people find themselves in, and then that's preventing them from being able to have that income to secure. And it's significant now because Americans carry $1.2 trillion in credit card debt, over $6,500 balance for the average person. It's significant. So the V is for Vanquish, and you focus on high interest debt in particular. But I know a lot of people I talk to, they kind of feel like that's the whole plan. Like when it comes down to it, you just become debt free and you try to live a debt free life, and that's financial security. But with like the credit cards the way they are in the system the way it is today, how are you teaching someone to, one, attack that debt aggressively without losing momentum and then burning out and then sliding right back into the habits that got them in trouble in the first place?
Yeah. So what I do is, one, I provide them with a free 7-day Stop Living Paycheck to Paycheck challenge where they have access to that so that they can see the math and the numbers for free. Then two, I let them know, hey, go ahead and implement the debt snowball where you take your credit card balances, you take the lowest, and then you put in order the next highest and then the highest and the highest. And you just start chipping away at the balances. Now you might say, I can't do it. It's hard. Yeah, if you do what's hard today, your life is going to be easier tomorrow. But if you do the easy thing of making the 1% payment today, your life is going to be very hard tomorrow. The interest is going to compound. Take a basic $5,000 purchase, $5,000 purchase. You make the minimum payment. It's going to take you about 22 years to pay it off. You can have a child, your child can graduate from high school and be in college about to graduate. Do you really want to carry around that plastic credit card knowing that your child is about to graduate from college and you're still making payments on it? You don't want that. Debt is a big, heavy burden on your back when it's at 24%. You got to knock it out. You got to pay it off ASAP. I've done it. I had credit card debt. If you can do it, I can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. You know the saying. There's people who've been bankrupt who came back. It's a mental mindset of, guess what? When you swipe that card, you wanted to enjoy today, and you said you was going to pay it back. Guess what? It's time to pay it back. Stop telling yourself lies. You don't need it. You don't need it. You don't. So that's what I do. I have people do a hard exercise by looking at the numbers. I have them do the Stop Living Paycheck to Paycheck challenge so that they can see what it is costing them. Because a lot of times people never do the numbers.
Yeah. And then there's a lot of ways to get support as well. Talked about on the show, like even nonprofits will help and advocate and call and kind of negotiate so you can get some relief, like a 0% interest for a while, just so you can really start to get some breathing room and get some momentum going. I am curious how you help people understand where to prioritize. Let's imagine someone realized, okay, I've been spending $500 going out every month to eat. I'm going to get that money back. Now I have $500 I can put somewhere. Do you typically say you need to prioritize that debt elimination before, let's say, investing, especially when people are seeing that maybe they can turn around and get like a good solid 9-10% back in an investment? Like, how does the S.A.V.E.R framework accommodate both at the same time?
Yeah, so I'm going to ask you, do you have life insurance? If you don't have life insurance outside of work and you have somebody depending on your income, I'm going to say go ahead and lock that in, because life insurance today is more affordable than when you're 58 years old, than when you're 65, and your children, your loved ones, your spouse needs it. So lock that in with the extra money. Then two, I'm going to say, hey, are you putting money in your retirement account with your employer? So if your employer offers a 401k match of 3%, 2%, I'm going to tell you to get the match first. I'm not going to tell you to pay off debt. I don't believe in that. That's why it's the S.A.V.E.R philosophy. I want you to get the free money. You take and you put in $200 and now your employer matches that $200. You just increase your net worth by $200, by 100% return on your money, not even looking at how compound interest works, the rule of 72, and etc. Once you're able to put money into your 401k up into the employer match, then I'm going to tell you to go ahead and knock out those high interest debt. Anything above, 9-8%, go ahead and start knocking it out, because it's a guaranteed return as well. You can say you're going to invest in the market. I like investing in the market, but what if it's a down year when the market goes down negative 20%? Go ahead and lock in that guaranteed 20% by paying off that credit card, getting out of debt. As soon as you get out of debt, now you're going to start investing more.
I imagine this comes down to running some numbers too, right? Like if you see that you're going to get further along by paying down more debt versus maybe taking advantage of a down market because you think you might be able to get those returns because you have a 3 to 5 year horizon, that you're okay allowing that to become your future liquidity fund. I think
not for me. So this is where I like going at it with people and like having that discussion. No, it's a system. Most people don't have a system, and that's why they end up in financial debt. They don't have a path. They don't have a philosophy. Secure your income, get that life insurance, get the 401k match, then pay off your high interest debt. Remember, you're putting money in the market if you have a 401k account with your employer. If you're self-employed, then you can get a self-employed IRA, put money into a self-employed IRA, do the match, you're investing. Now, you're going to go ahead and knock out that high interest debt, and then you go into investing in your IRAs and et cetera. And then you're going to teach financial literacy to your children so they can understand it. This is why I feel like most people are messed up financially, because they don't have a system that they're going to follow, which ends up getting them in trouble. And as you know, there's so many people who invest in options. They're making so much money today, and then they have a wrong trade, right? Because every day is not guaranteed. The market changes on us, and we don't know. Warren Buffett says it all the time. It is hard to time the market.
Yeah. And just to be clear, I don't think anyone's recommending anyone times the market. I think it's about knowing your horizon, your goals, and then putting your cash in the place that can help you achieve those goals, and understanding that there's good debt and there's bad debt, right? Like there's debt that can be leveraged for you because you can afford to pay the balance. You can afford to get ahead because what you're doing is you're moving money from future to your present. That can help you with opportunity that you might not have. But there's high interest bad debt, consumer debt in particular, that I think so many people find themselves drowning in, that prevents them from having any money left at the end of the day, especially if you're not controlling your spending. Then how are you going to put money anywhere else, even in that investment that you want? And that, I think, draws people to those options, to gambling and things like that, because they're hoping to make more faster. And the consequence, less retirement, maybe no retirements. Only 35% of non-retired Americans say they can have any retirement savings on track. 13% of Americans have no retirement savings at all, and 35% say they're not on track. So like, this is a big deal. People just don't ever even get to that point. And I know like in S.A.V.E.R, you talk about Allocate and Empower. And I think that's probably what a lot of people think of when they think about getting towards financial freedom, is about growing and then protecting that wealth through things like smart investing and then tax strategies. For someone who hasn't even gotten past the debt part, but maybe they're now following the framework and they know that eventually they're going to have to start to invest. Can you talk about the entry points? I think you mentioned ETFs. and tax advantage accounts. How do people just need to go and start doing the education? Or are you laying out that as a roadmap for them to follow? And do you think everyone should be following the same path there?
Yeah. So everybody needs to look at their own financial tolerance and take a look at what they're comfortable with. As you know, buying individual stocks could be good, but if you were the person who bought Montgomery Ward or Kmart, right now you're bankrupt, right? So that's the risk of buying individual stocks. And that's something where when you take financial courses, you read up on it, which I do teach. You understand the risk versus reward. And so once you understand your risk tolerance, then you're going to replicate what you already did with your 401k because you've done the research, you looked at your portfolio options that your employer provided you with, and you made a choice. Now that you have extra money because your high interest credit cards are paid off, now you're going to be able to invest in an individual IRA. You can do a Roth IRA where you pay taxes today, and then you put money into your account like a $5,000, $500, or $100 into an IRA, and then that money will grow. You can buy individual stocks, you can buy electronic ETFs, you can buy AI ETFs, you can buy health ETFs. You have so many options that you can choose from. And once again, if it's a Roth IRA, you only pay taxes today as if your regular salary money, everything you put into the Roth IRA now grows tax-free. You can have a traditional IRA where you put money in, you buy the same stocks, the ETF, whatever you want to buy. However, when you reach your minimum retirement age, you have to take money out so that the government can tax you on it. Example, you make $80,000, say you put in, $4,000 into your traditional IRA. That year, the government is only going to tax you on the difference between what you made and what you put in the market. They're going to deduct what you put in the market and not tax you on that.
Are you recommending people go further than that? What about brokerage accounts? What about people looking at early retirement?
Yeah. And so for the everyday middle class people who are living paycheck to paycheck, they don't have a system. So most of them aren't making lots of money per se to be even worried about how much they're going to have once they max out their IRAs. But if they do max out their IRAs, then of course they can still put money into a regular brokerage account that they're with.
Yeah. So it sounds like what you're saying is you need to prioritize the tax advantage accounts, which I agree on fully. And after that, if you have a goal of being able to access funds, well, you have that brokerage account. Take advantage of setting up a non-tax advantage account there because you'd be able to allocate towards that and then access it early. Yeah, that makes complete sense. Let's talk about the teaching part, though, because there is a lot here that people try to navigate. The framework gives them something to work with because, like you said, no one has anything usually. And so they feel lost. Can you talk a bit about how to teach effectively, especially to the next generation? Because a lot of people don't feel they know enough themselves. US adults correctly answer only about 37% of retirement specific questions correctly. Was measured across 32 states. 32 states still have no legislation requiring any kind of personal finance education in schools. So most schools still aren't teaching this. So is this a teach yourself, figure it out and teach your kids? Like how is S.A.V.E.R helping the reinforcing part?
Yes, or reiterate financial literacy. When you read the book I wrote, Build Generational Wealth, Retire Early, you're going to see how the couples, they got married. Some people within the book had life insurance and their family suffered because they didn't have life insurance. Others got life insurance. That's S, secure your income. A, allocate your 401k investments to the right accounts based upon your financial risk tolerance. That's telling your kids, hey, you got a job. Make sure that you open up your 401k account and check your allocation. Do you want that target date fund that only gives you 6%, which is like going 60 miles down the road? Or do you want to go and get an index fund like large cap fund that gives you maybe a 9%, 10% return that's going 90, 100 miles going down the road? Now, if you know you're going to travel 600 miles, do you want to go 60 miles per hour and get there in 10 years? Or do you want to get the vehicle that goes 100 miles per hour, maybe an airplane, and gets there in less time? This is what your retirement number is about. You want to retire early? Well, you maybe need $200 million, $2 million, whatever that number is you come up with. Your financial instrument that you choose is going to let you know how long it's going to take to get there. Then you're going to tell your kids, look, credit cards, 24%, 22%, it's worse than the rate of return that you're getting in the market. So why are you paying the bank that fee? You don't need it today. Wait. Then you're going to tell them, look, I see you on your phone, literally buying stock on your phone, pushing a button because somebody said buy it. But guess what? If you go and take a look at the S.A.V.E.R community, there's a chart. It's going to show you John, he made his purchases within his IRA account. And guess what? He ended up paying $100,000 less in taxes over 30 years compared to you. Now, I don't know about you, but $100,000 is a big difference. That's the story they're going to tell. And so that's Empower. And so reinforcing financial literacy is that, hey, you're working. Let's go open up a child Roth IRA for you right now. Which stock do you want? You want to buy Amazon? You want to buy SMH, the ETF fund is taking off right now, where you have all these AI stocks in it? Hey, for Christmas, guess what? Open up your phone. I just bought you some stock. Now they see it. I was talking to my kids yesterday. I told them, pull up their phone. How much did your money go up that I sent you for that SMH ETF? They said it went up 57%. You see? Exposure, talking. And I tell them, if something happens to me, what are you going to invest in? They say the S&P 500. Something happens to me, you're going to invest in what? The S&P 500. You're not going to go to a financial person and let them sell you the water at the amusement park for $10 when you can go to Walmart and get it for $2. It's the same thing. This Aquafina water is being sold. The S&P 500 is the same thing you can buy on your own.
I really like the advice about getting that Roth account opened as early as possible. You don't even have to put any money into it. Just get it open in their name because the clock starts running. And then somewhere down the line, they have a fully qualified Roth account, even if they never put any money into that thing. That's a powerful strategy, and it's a powerful asset that everyone should have. What age do you think parents should really start talking to their kids about some of these things?
As soon as possible, man. I could go on and on. I have resources that show that if you put $100 into an account when a child is born, add money, grandma, cousins put money into that account. By the time they're age 18, if it's $5,000 in it and you let it sit and it compounds, by the time they're age 62, it's going to grow to about $300,000. That's a nice little retirement based upon somebody putting in up to $5,000 when they're young. So I say as soon as possible, because it's teaching them that save today, invest today, and let your money grow. Because imagine, Daniel, if somebody put money into an IRA account for you when you were 2 years old, and then when you turned 5, they showed you your statement. Now you're 18, huh?
I'd be super happy if someone did that.
So that's what it's all about, sooner rather than later.
I did this for my son. My son turned 18 and was about to go to college, and he just had this block with investing. So I'm like, look, I already created you have a 529 account. We're investing in that. You have your Roth account, savings account, but I want you to at least understand how does investments work. So I gave him $1,000 and I got him set up with a brokerage account. Like, okay, let's walk through. This is what an ETF is. This is what a stock is. Let's look at the trade-offs. Let's look at your horizon. And that $1,000, that was a little over a year ago. It's like tripled. Now, I'm not making any promises on returns. We picked really good broad ETFs that had good growth, and we diversified it in some smart ways. But he's getting it. He's like, okay, that's great. I know I'm not going to touch that, but I feel better knowing that's there. And when I have some extra money, I want to put some more into it. Completely got rid of the block. Sometimes you got to hold people's hands a bit. I'm curious though, like my wife, for instance, zero interest in learning investing, doesn't want to do it. She wants me to do it. How about those couples where you have two different financial people? Maybe there's a saver, maybe there's a spender, whatever it is. How do you always recommend they teach and talk to their kids and reinforce skills within each other?
Wow, you must have went on my website and saw the money personality quiz for couples. On there, it's a resource where they can literally take the quiz as a couple to find out how each one thinks about money. Once they're able to have that conversation, they realize one person is a saver. Another person is a giver. They get money and they just want to give it away. Others want to invest for the future. Others just want to protect what they have. So once they're on the same page and each one knows how each person is in regard to personality about money, then what you can do is the person who has the strongest interest in that topic can lead that conversation at dinner with the children. Hey, you know what? You said y'all want to go on vacation this year. Okay, so we got to cut something out. You can't keep going shopping at the mall every week and keep going out to eat if we want to go on vacation. So, hey, y'all do a budget to save up for the vacation. So now you're getting them involved and you're showing them that things cost money. There's trade-offs. Another time I told my child, I was like, hey, we had a couple of kids. I said, hey, I can give each one of y'all $200, or we can use that to go and get a hotel room over the weekend, a location, just to look at the money psychology of you want that selfish enjoyment or the group entertainment. But it's $600, right? The money has to be spent on one thing. It can't be spent on everything. And so another thing we do for our children is we pay them when they get straight A's. They have to get straight A's. They come home, give us a report card. We give them $50, $60, $100 per semester for the straight A's, teaching them that hard work pays off. Then we give them the money. They go buy the school clothes and the things they want to buy. So now when they go to TJ Maxx, you should see them. They're in there just like, nope, too much. Nope, that's too expensive. But if it's mommy and daddy's money, it's not expensive whatsoever.
Yeah, that's actually really effective. We do something similar. Our kids earn an income and they have to spend it on all those things as well. We don't just buy their stuff for them. They have to buy all that stuff for themselves. And so they budget and they think about it. And now my son, since he's moved out, he's in college, he's like, wow, it's even harder than I thought it was going to be because, costs just count as you get older. So Michael, this has been really great. I really appreciate walking us through your S.A.V.E.R framework. I think that makes a lot of sense and the way you broke it down. How can listeners connect with you? And also, how can they find your book?
All they have to do is go to Michael Dillard, MichaelDillard.org. You're going to see lots of free resources available because I'm really into helping people stop living paycheck to paycheck. You get to take advantage of the free 7-day Stop Living Paycheck to Paycheck challenge. It has a retirement gap analyzer in there, has the couples money personality quiz along with the challenge. As far as the book goes, you can go to Amazon.com and then you just type in Michael Dillard, Build Generational Wealth, and it will pop up. And it's a short read. It's meant to help people just have a simple framework that they can follow. And what I believe in is that there's so many ways to get from A to Z, but you just have to follow a plan.
Well, thanks again for coming on Escape the Clock and sharing framework with all of us. Really appreciate it. Studies say that the average person makes over 200 decisions a day just about food. It could be as many as 15 decisions a day when it comes to money. And most of those decisions about money are small, but a few of them can actually change everything. And there are some that have stuck with me to this day that I can even still hear in my head. I remember at my first job thinking, should I put any money into this 401k thing? When my student loan activated, I saw a $100,000 balance staring right back in my face. And I remember thinking, do I knock this out or do I handle my credit card? When a job change meant that we would have to sell our home and buy a new home in another state, I remember turning to my wife and asking, do we still buy this new house, even if it means carrying a third mortgage? And there's even one I still ask every single month, looking at the bank statement, how did we spend more money again? I know you have your own version of these. We all do. And how we answer them has less to do with the math and more to do with who we are and what kind of week we're having. Because here's the trap. When life is loud and we're stretched thin, the money decision is the one that we don't have the energy to think about. And that's exactly when it's easiest to just swipe the card or sign that loan or just put off that big decision to later. But a system can change that. A system makes the decision before the stressful moment arrives so that you're not negotiating with yourself at the register. And that's why I wanted Michael on the show. His S.A.V.E.R framework isn't built to turn you into a financial guru. It's built so that you don't have to be one. And maybe that's not you, but I promise you know someone who's drowning in these decisions right now. So let's break it down letter by letter and walk out of here being able to help them and ourselves. S is for secure your income. The problem that solves is fragility. One accident, one layoff, one injury, and a household built on a single stream has nothing underneath it. And most people are that exposed. According to the Federal Reserve, only 35% of non-retirees believe their retirement savings are even on track. And the example Michael gave here was two neighbors who make the same $80,000 salary who work for the same employer. Neighbor A buys a $500,000 life insurance policy outside of work for about $30 a month. Neighbor B says he's fine because his work is covering him. One day, they're carpooling together, and they can get into a serious accident and sadly lose their lives. Now, the life insurance policy from their employer kicks in, and that's sufficient to cover their families for a single year of their income. Now, except neighbor A had also acquired that additional coverage outside of work. So that policy would continue to provide, while neighbor B's family might have to go start like a GoFundMe. The point here is that so many depend on their W-2 salary for everything. So why not secure it the best way you can? A is for Allocate Wisely. It's about addressing the autopilot that so many of us find ourselves in during our busy lives. Consider how we all get opted into employer plans and then take the default option and never look back at it. Vanguard has reported that nearly 2/3 of people take the default investment path rather than choose their own. And if you ask me, that isn't a plan. That's hope. Hope that the default just happens to be the right one for your retirement. And Michael's math is blunt here. A target date fund averaging around 6% versus a large cap index fund around 9% is roughly $100,000 in difference over a career on the exact same contributions. So when it comes to allocating your cash towards your retirement, his framework advises to take the match and then take the time to select the right fund for you. The match alone means that each dollar you contributed is a guaranteed 100% return, and that is even before the markets moved it at all. V is for Vanquish, and it's really focused on high interest debt. Debt is the one thing that every framework has to reckon with, and that's because the problem is so large. So many of these decisions we make revolve around it. Americans carry $1.2 trillion in credit card debt with an average balance of $6,523. The cards have an average interest rate above 22%. If the goal is to fill the chest with coins, you can't do it if there's a large hole in it. That is the effect of unchecked consumer debt. It's the leaking sludge that stops wealth. Left alone at the minimum payment, a single $5,000 purchase can follow you for 2 decades. Long enough for a newborn to graduate high school. Paying off a card charging 22% is a guaranteed 22% return. And no fund on earth is going to promise you that. Eventually, with the debt vanquished, you'll have a lot more cash. You can start doing the things that really matter to you. That takes us to E. E is for Empower. This one takes on the invisible tax that so many miss. Instead of using tax advantage accounts to save for retirement, people buy stocks and plain old brokerage accounts, not realizing that they're creating a tax event every time that they sell out of the positions. Now, you might think that's impossible. Surely people would understand something as basic as if you have a normal account and you sell something, you're going to pay taxes. But I promise you, it's actually real. There's a real knowledge gap in America. When tested on basic financial literacy, U.S. adults have answered only about 49% of questions correctly in the entire decade that test has been running. And this is not to shame anyone, but I've seen some of these things with my own eyes when I'm working with people. One man in particular had saved $60,000 proudly in his Roth IRA. And when we logged in, I saw that it was all sitting in cash. He just didn't know that you had to buy investments after you put the cash in the account. That was over a decade of growth lost. When asked to open either a traditional or a Roth IRA, it's not uncommon for people just to pick one, not wanting to admit to not knowing the difference. Yet the difference can be quite expensive. Pre-tax accounts are like taking a coupon from the government for a better deal today, but promising that you're going to pay them a percentage of anything that you can possibly earn back later. So putting your highest growth investments in a pre-tax account is in essence donating more of your future wealth to the government, which I'm sure they appreciate. It basically means a big payday means a big bill to the IRS. But if you were to make the same investments in a Roth account, that flips it with a hit up front, then zero taxes on all the growth later. So same plan, different accounts, very different outcomes. Empowering people to put their investments in the right places, aligned to their goals, can really make all the difference in long-term financial stability. That leads us to R. R is for reinforcing financial literacy. The problem that this one solves is that the system dies with you if it only lives in your head. And schools aren't backfilling this. As of this conversation, 20 states still don't guarantee a standalone personal finance course before graduation. And even I failed R a little bit myself when it came to preparing my own kids. And you might be thinking, yeah, right, I'm the guy that wrote a finance book to help make sure my kids were prepared for all the things so they didn't repeat the same mistakes I learned. But look, I actually thought my son was covered. I had a 529 account for him. I had opened a Roth. He had a savings account. I'd given all the right accounts and I'd set everything up, and I felt really proud of that. But when it came time for him to actually use the accounts, he froze. He had this block. Even though he knew I wanted him to invest, he just couldn't get himself to do it. I had bought the toothbrush, but I never taught him the importance of brushing his teeth. That block didn't break until I handed him $1,000 and walked him through the process by hand. And it takes a little while to set up a brokerage account and make the investment. So during that time, I got to explain to him what I knew, and I got him thinking about what he wanted and what he was comfortable with. And that was great. We were able to get there. So he bought a few shares of like some tech stock and then infrastructure stock and then a few low cost broad market ETFs. And then he kind of forgot about it. And a year later, I asked him to check the balance, and he was surprised to see that it had almost tripled. He'd barely thought about it since we set it up. He was probably just happy that I was off his back. But at the moment he saw the value, I knew he was now ready to brush his own teeth. That's the S.A.V.E.R framework. 5 letters, 1 order of operations. Secure the income, allocate to capture the match, vanquish the high interest debt, empower the tax savings, reinforce it to the next generation. It's simple by design. You have to run the sequence so that the 15 money decisions you make today stop being 15 sources of stress and start being 15 moments where you already know the answer. If there's one takeaway from this episode, I hope it's this. Imagine that spouse, parent, grandparent, or friend that struggles with money. Now imagine they do these 5 things. Suddenly, they'll have a plan and a decision-making framework. And in time, that loved one might be more secure, better allocated, more free of debt, on path for a better retirement, and maybe even ready to reinforce those learnings with someone else. I'd love to hear from you. Of those 15 daily money decisions, which one still trips you up the most? Email me at contact@escapetheclock.com or leave a comment wherever you listen. I'm Daniel C. Rogers. Thanks for listening, and best of luck building your system and escaping the clock. I'll catch you next week. That's a wrap on this episode of Escape the Clock. Everything you've heard today is for educational purposes only, designed to help you think, plan, and build a stronger financial program. Take what resonates, bring it into your Escape the Clock plan, and review it with a qualified professional before making any major moves. I'm Daniel C. Rogers, a wealth management certified professional and your host. The book, the free planner, and the one-on-one time with me are all waiting for you at escapetheclock.com. If this episode was valuable, please leave a rating, share it with someone who needs to hear it. I'll catch you next week.